and the ancestors are looking out for us. God Hayes is exposing them, man.
Okay, you see that chair right there? See how big it is?
Yeah.
Now look at the Pope chair under it. Scroll down, look at the Pope chair under it.
Never have it been made so clear.
Young TV. Young.
We running the game right now.
Young TV.
Time to take over.
Young
We the hottest in the game. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you just not tuned in.
TV.
Share, like on your Instagram, Facebook.
Young TV.
If you tuned in, we broadcasting live from 2030, baby.
Young TV. Young
Taking over the game, baby. Oh yeah.
Young TV.
Hit that like.
Young TV.
Get them likes up in the air, you heard me?
Young TV.
Ride by. Hotel Islam.
Young TV.
Assalamu alaikum. Flown letter.
Young TV.
Rizq, providing quality galactical service for 76 trillion years.
Rizq go back 76 trillion years, started by Anu, Raziel I, and his son, Raziel II, the 15th elder, who we'll bring on in just a minute. We are responsible for most of the design of the spacecrafts around your galaxy. It all starts when Rizq got attacked, and we had to come up with plans to generate finances so that we can expand our family and move to other parts of the galaxy. We are responsible for a lot of your technology on your planet right now today and in your galaxy. A lot of beings have purchased technology from us, from Rizq. It's certain beings that have restrictions placed on them, such as the reptilians. So certain beings we don't sell certain technology to. Keep in mind, for this company, we needed different minerals like gold, right? We needed copper. We went throughout the galaxy excavating these different minerals on different planets, not just Earth. But we, as Anunnakis, knew that the gold was good on Earth. Some of the minerals that were needed for our company Rizq, like Naquata element 125, is not found on Earth. But crystals, right, using the piezoelectricity, are found on Earth. And also, there's a crystal form on Pluto. We already broke that down on a field trip to Pluto. Limestone is used as a filtering device for our air machines. Silver, right? All these different minerals. Mercury, right? Which we use for different scientific experiments. Lead. All of these elements are found here on Earth. Carbon, right? We needed what you call supplies. This is what we call supplies for Rizq. Plutonium, which is highly explosive. Because we as Anunnakis are responsible for most of your war type devices. Element 115, which we would bring Bob Lazarus on, which would go into more detail on how the 115 is used in the anti-gravity reactors. Titanium, right? Some of these things you know about. Ammonia. The Anunnakis were coming in here to get ammonia, right? And cleaning supplies. Because keep in mind, as it is above, so is it below. Chlorophyll. Your planet is high on chlorophyll. chlorine, right? Because keep in mind, these beans keep it clean up there as well. I mean, extra crispy clean. Heaven is real clean on the mothership Nubaru, right? Platinum. This is real money, y'all. This is real galactical wealth. 76 trillion years ago, we began creating these huge planetary-sized ships, which we referred to at that time called Nimbabare. Right? Later on developing these ships, we designed the mothership Nubaru, which is a whole fleet of ships. This ship is a huge planetary-sized ship, about 8 times the size of Earth, being 63,408 miles in diameter, right? Can travel at the speed of light, really 9 times the speed of light, and it has the ability to reconfigure itself through wormholes. Equipped with 12 cylinder crafts, 24 crystal cities, and 2,880 shams, which are passengers or shuttle type crafts. It also has 11 warships. Now keep in mind, different types of Nubarus were designed. Over trillions of years worth of development, we developed different types of the Nubaru fleet. Some of them look different. The newest version is the more upgraded version. Keep in mind, this is referred to as the 12th planet, the planet of the crossing, the home of the Anunnakis. And we'll be getting more into who the Anunnakis are if you have been following us. Go back and check out all those Anunnaki tapes that we put out. So these are superior, supreme beings who've been living a long time, who live on a planet called Nubaru, which has a 3,600 year orbit called Ashar. From the old orbit from Rizq or Eliun, which had a 25,980 year orbit. Now what we're about to do is bring the head technician, Raziel, and his assistant, Rahaya.
Rizq Tech. Providing the multiverse with technology for 76 trillion years. Rahubat. Anuki Rukaya, Chief Technology Officer and Director of Aerospace Engineering at Rizq Tech.
Wa'anuki Raziel, the 15th of the 24 elders, leader of the valiant and courageous Ophanim, referred to as the wheel seen on Ezekiel's vision of the chariot, and I am the CEO and founder of Rizq Tech. Rizq Tech was founded 76 trillion years ago as a multinational technological defense contracting company created for a secret mission from the planet Rizq to the planet Kolk, the 4th planet in the 12th galaxy. Over the years, Rizq Tech has grown from a multinational corporation to a multiplanetary, multigalactic, multiversal, and multidimensional entity. Rizq Tech now operates as an agency of the Rizqian Department of Defense responsible for the development of new technologies for commercial and military applications.
Rizq Tech has been responsible for developing many technologies which have had a major impact on intergalactic travel, transportation, and conveyance across the universe.
One of our earliest crafts was called the Mother Plane, a massive wheel within a wheel, planet-sized spacecraft, which appeared as a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, and contained 1,500 smaller bombing planes which spanned 1/2 mile by 1/2 mile each, and carried 30 thermal nuclear bombs capable of drilling 1 mile down into the earth, and causing mountains to rise 1 mile high, which could destroy everything in a 50 square mile radius.
Now this wheel has 1,500 planes on it. And each of those planes carries 3 bombs. And the bombs on those planes are the same kind of high explosives that were used to bring up the mountains on the earth. You say mountains brought up by high explosives? Yes. Yes. The Holy Quran says, and we raise mountains on the earth, lest it convulse and carry you away. The same way you put weights on your tire to give balance to your tire so you have a smooth ride down the highway. The earth is oblong, not round, but you're riding a very smooth ride at the speed of 1,037 1/3 miles per hour, and you don't even feel a jolt unless God makes the earth quake under your feet. Why is your ride so smooth? It's because like you put weights on an imbalanced tire, God mountains on the earth, lest the earth convulse and carry you away. How do you raise a mountain? Put a firecracker in sand, put it an inch down and explode it, and it'll bring up a mound an inch high. Put it down 2 inches and you'll bring up a mound 2 inches high. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the bombs have a drill at the end of it with a timing device, and that drill is made of the finest steel. The steel is not known to this world. It's the same steel that's in those wheels. It is not known to this world. And if you read anything that the white man writes on unidentified flying objects, they talk about a steel that they've never seen anything like it before. Don't you know that we, the original people, created all of this?
After the great calamity which befell Rizq, to bolster the Rizqian economy, we created, provided, and sold many of our crafts and astral travel technologies commercially to many beings throughout the universe. Beings from Zeta Reticuli and the planet Avalon both acquired crafts from Rizq Tech, which they subsequently crashed on your planet Earth.
Your Earth American government recovered some of these crafts which crashed on your planet Earth, and created the secret military base called Area 51, which stands for Alien Reverse Engineering Association, in hopes to reverse engineer our technology and use it for themselves. Through these efforts to reverse engineer our technology, there has been an exponential rate of technological advancement on your planet.
Did you witness any disk technology at Area 51?
No, there was absolutely no ET craft, ET technology, anything like that at Area 51. This is why S4 was made specifically to separate it there. People at Area 51 do not have the clearance.
How long were you employed at S4, and when were you hired?
When was I hired at S4? I guess early '89, and I was probably there only about 6 months or so, on a very infrequent basis.
How were you transported to and from work?
At the time that I was working there at McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas, there was a Special Projects EG&G building. When I was told to go to work, I drove there, parked my car there, and got in a plane at the airport, flew to Groom Lake, where I deplaned and waited for a bus, and the bus drove me down to S4. The S4 facility is an area just off the Papoose lake bed, dry lake bed, and it consists of 9 hangars. The hangars have sloped doors on them with a sand texture coating. Around the opposite end of the hangars, there's the standard entrance where you're dropped off at, go through a security check, and inside there's a small complex. There is some office space, there's several laboratories, the hangars themselves, of course, and a few other places. I didn't have free reign to go wherever I wanted to. Everywhere I went to, I was essentially escorted, so that was really all about that I saw.
Inside the facility, what was the basic layout? Were there underground levels?
I don't think there were any underground levels to it, though there could have been. I don't think it was an extensive underground facility. It just looked like an installation that was butt up against a mountain. And I didn't see any evidence of any stairs going down, elevators, or but like I said, I don't know. There could have been, and I just might not have been permitted in those areas. It's difficult to really surmise how long it had been operational. Everything did look fairly new. By that I mean I don't think this installation was there in the early 70s. Nothing was worn. Things look fairly freshly painted. So, as a ballpark guess, I would say it would really surprise me if the installation was older than 5, 7, 10 years, something like that.
What agency is in charge of S4? Who controls the program?
I was paid by the Department of Naval Intelligence, and what they're doing, researching extraterrestrial craft is beyond me, but that's where my checks came from, so I can only assume that they were in charge of that.
Did you see high-level government or military personnel at S4?
No, not at S4.
Anywhere in the overall facility at all?
At Area 51, I believe, and essentially determining whether or not you can duplicate it.
Now, scientists aside, what was your emotional response? What were you thinking were the implications to the world or man in general from these revelations?
I really didn't think about implications of that sort. As far as emotionally, people have asserted that, boy, that must have been the most exciting time in your life, and that's not the way it was. When I first got to look inside the craft, all I can say, it's an ominous feeling. You walk in there and it feels as if you shouldn't be there. I know that sounds kind of corny, but it's a real ominous feeling. It's not an exciting feeling. It brings up a whole lot of questions in your mind. Well, where did this come from? And you know that they won't give you the answers to the whole story, but that's the only way I can describe it.
How many craft are housed at S4, and are they in fact all dish-shaped?
There are 9, and their shapes vary. I only got to do a close inspection on one of them. The others I just briefly saw, and they pretty much varied. I give everything nicknames there. The one I worked on was kind of sleek looking, and I gave it the name of the sport model. There was one that looked like a Jell-O mold. There was one that looked like a top hat. There was a disc that was turned up on its side, and it had a large projectile hole with the metal bent outwards on it. I can only surmise they were testing it to see if a projectile could penetrate it. Of course, it's just a guess on my part. But for the most part, they were pretty varied.
How many times did you enter the disc, or did you only enter the sport model?
I only entered the sport model. The other ones I wasn't allowed to loiter around, to go near, really even to look at. I just, at one point, walking through the hangar doors, all the bay doors between all the hangars were open, and I got a glimpse all the way down, of the whole corridor, but that was the only time it was ever open.
Tell us about the lower level of the craft, where the gravity generators are located.
The lower level of the craft, the floor itself is hexagonal, little hexagonal squares, and the hatch, or if you want to call it a hatch, the access way to get in there is an ingenious little assembly. It's a honeycomb structure, and if you put your fingers in one end of the honeycomb and push, all the honeycombs will collapse in on each other, making a hole. It's kind of a neat doorway, something that we could, use. I don't know what for, but I mean, it's something that I haven't seen before, and it's kind of a novel idea, but a very efficient, lightweight, very strong access way. I had to hang upside down in there to see the lower level, essentially, and there were 3 large gravity amplifiers. These devices looked like about a 2-foot diameter, 4-foot long piece of pipe hanging by a smaller piece of pipe from the level above, and they can be independently positioned, and that's what emits the gravitational waves that propel the craft. The second level was the only other level that I was on. It was the main level that contained the reactor, where the seating was, the gravity amplifiers themselves, though we also called the devices that hung down on the lower level the gravity amplifiers, because they were really one and the same. They were probably the wave guides or horns, if you want to relate that to microwaves. And really, that's about it. That's all that was on that level.
So it's assumed this was not made for a human pilot.
It would be extremely inconvenient for a human pilot. Humans really can't even function in there because of the ceiling clearance. The seats were so tiny. It was obviously made for a creature much smaller than a human.
How does the craft achieve lift?
It produces a gravity wave which is similar to the gravity wave that the Earth produces. However, the craft phase shifts the wave. In other words, it turns the wave not really in an opposite polarity, but something to that effect, where it will work against the natural gravity wave of the Earth, and it produces lift in that effect.
Is there any internal protection for the crew? Does the craft generate a gravitational field inside the craft itself?
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field. Being inside that field essentially doesn't shield you, but essentially you're in, and this is a terrible way to say it, almost in a different realm, because you're now influenced only by that gravitational field. For instance, people wonder how a craft like this can make a turn at such high speed, a 90-degree turn, when they would imagine people slamming up against the wall or something to that effect. Well, that really wouldn't happen. Inertia would have no effect. You're in a distortion, and don't forget that gravity distorts time and space, so really nothing is going to influence you while you're in there.
Describe the gravity amplifiers for us and some of their different operating configurations.
There are 3 amplifiers. The craft can operate on a single one, can lift off the ground. The way in which it's propelled are 2 different ways. There's what they call Omicron configuration, where the craft is using one generator, or Delta configuration, where it's utilizing all 3. Delta configuration would be for space travel. Essentially, the craft will tilt up on its side, as opposed to a science fiction movie where you see a flying saucer moving around. The craft will tilt up on its side, focus the 3 gravity generators to a single point, and move through space that way. Moving around the source of gravity is a problem to a disk because it's interference, essentially. So what they do is they work with that interference to their benefit. They'll use one gravity generator to lift the craft off the ground. And as opposed to what we're used to, for instance, a plane, once it's in the air, we envision thrust or some force coming out the back of it to push it forward. The crafts work completely opposite of that. What they do is once they're hovering in the air, they'll swing the 2 remaining gravity generators up in front of them and create a distortion, essentially a downhill, and the craft rolls downhill for infinity. It's always chasing a little distortion. That's why they look goofy when they fly around at low speed, because they're essentially, and any time you run over, the gravity field around the Earth is not completely constant and stable, depending on the minerals and density of the Earth underneath it. The gravity will vary somewhat, and you will get odd movements of the craft. So its low-speed mode is kind of unstable for the most part. I only witnessed one test flight up close, officially. That I was just inside the hangar. The test was going off probably, just as the sun was going down, and it was a low-performance test. I believe there were some pilots or test pilots in the craft. The craft must have been retrofitted to fit them, because the seating arrangements were really not accommodating. They were in radio communication with the craft, which is kind of surprising to me, because the gravity waves that the craft was producing should have distorted the radio waves also. So apparently there's something there that I don't understand. The craft lifted off the ground, virtually noiseless, other than a small corona discharge on the bottom of the craft, indicating the presence of high voltage. That dissipated at about 30 feet, and it stood there completely silently, and moved over to the left and to the right, and sat back down. That was the entire test. However, that was an extremely impressive test. Maybe to someone that really knows little about science or anything, that wouldn't be a whole lot, but you have to realize this craft was about 52 feet in diameter. I don't know exactly how much it weighed, but it weighed a lot. And this was quite a scientific feat, to lift something completely silently, under control, and perform a maneuver like. Also, that's almost a byproduct of the reactor. The reactor also sets up a gravitational wave from the 115 being bombarded. This gravitational wave was present at the top of the reactor and is essentially guided in the same way microwaves are guided through tuned tubes. And this goes to their amplifying cavities and through the projectors that are in the bottom of the craft.
With the gravity generators running, is there thermal radiation danger to the crew?
There is no thermal radiation while the reactor is running. The thermionic generator is 100% efficient, which is in violation of the first law of thermodynamics. But in fact, it works. Element 115 is stable. And for those familiar with chemistry, we know that elements with higher atomic numbers have shorter and shorter half-lives. However, when you reach a certain point, they call it the island of stability. There is a place, and we've theorized this for a long time, somewhere around 114 to 116, there should be an area in there where the nucleus of the atom is geometrically stable with protons and neutrons, where it no longer decays. It's not radioactive. 115 is, in fact, this element. In fact, it does occur again somewhere around element 247. Of course, we're nowhere near synthesizing that, and we can only predict things like that, but that's where 115 is.
Did they, the aliens, give us element 115 in large quantities?
Whether or not it was given to us, I can't answer that question. However, I was told that we have 500 pounds by one of my co-workers. How it was obtained and where exactly it came from, I don't know. Whether it came in one of the crafts or it was separate cargo somewhere, anyone can speculate. But I was told that was the figure.
You were able to get away with a sample of element 115. How much did you get away with?
No comment.
You witnessed several nighttime test flights unofficially while off the base. What did you see?
The test flights I saw off the base, actually the best test flight was witnessed by my friends who I had brought out there. At the exact moment the craft was hopping around and doing some really impressive maneuvers, I had turned around and I think was looking for the video camera or something to that effect, but I missed some of the most impressive maneuvers. But the craft was similar to what was done before that I had seen close up, other than the fact that it went above the mountain range, moved a much greater distance at a much higher rate of speed.
How were you able to find out about the test flight schedules?
The test flight schedules were told to me specifically because I was probably going to have to be present during those times. And at that time, the test flights were taking place on Wednesday nights. And from what they said, that was because that was statistically the least amount of traffic in the area. And that's all that they were concerned about.
Does the propulsion system release any sort of discharge or exhaust?
There was a high voltage discharge on the bottom of the craft, but as far as there being an exhaust, there was none.
Why do they appear as glowing balls of light in the night sky?
Well, that's kind of the same reason why a neon light or a fluorescent light lights up. What you're dealing with is a high energy source in essentially a gas atmosphere, oxygen, nitrogen. And when you apply enough energy to a gas molecule, they emit photons, they emit light. And I don't think it's anything, it's really a byproduct of how the craft operates. When it's emitting that much energy, the gas surrounding the craft emits light, the same reason why lightning is visible. You have a huge electrical discharge, and the gas emits light in the form of lightning bolt. If you were going to see one of these crafts at night operating, it would appear really as a glowing ball or just a bright light in the sky from a distance. Even close up, you'd see a glowing halo around it. This is typically what you'd see in your normal UFO sighting, if you've heard them a lot. However, keep in mind that lights in the sky are caused by much more common things than flying saucers.
Tell us a little more about the aurora you witnessed taking off out of Area 51.
When I was leaving the Area 51 facility heading down to S4, there was a tremendous roar, and I have described it as the sound like the sky was tearing. And I couldn't see out the windows of the bus. All I could see out was the very front. And as we came by, I asked Dennis, who was my supervisor and on the bus at that time, he said what that was. He said it was an Aurora, a high-altitude research plane. And it was a large craft, and the one glimpse I got of it was from the rear, and it had two huge square exhausts with vanes in them. And it was just, it sounded more like a rocket than a jet. I don't know. I even think he did mention that it was liquid methane powered, but there again, you know, working on the disk technology, I really could care less what was rolling around at Area 51, but it did catch my eye.
Fiber optics, transistors, stealth technology, microcircuitry, and hypersonic aviation materials were all reverse engineered from Rizq technology. The transistor was invented 5 months after the crash at Roswell, New Mexico near Area 51. The American aviator Howard Hughes obtained Rizq technology and subsequently used variants of our symbols as his company logo. Kelly Johnson, the lead engineer at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, witnessed one of our crescent-shaped Rizq Tech crafts flying through your Earth atmosphere, which inspired him to design the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird supersonic aircraft.
We have taught the science of ascension and astral travel to many beings throughout the multiverse. With all that you have reverse engineered, you still have not uncovered the higher mysteries of the secret sciences of ascension that we utilize in some of our more advanced interstellar technologies. For example, our crystal ships are aerodynamically and astrodynamically nano-engineered in one piece utilizing piezoelectric quasi-crystal metamaterials that are fabricated within an energy matrix and solidified as an aware living crystal. The pilot of the craft symbiotically interfaces with the craft telekinetically to control the navigation systems. The photonic circuits of the craft are charged from the movement of the piezoelectric crystal shell, which cycles energy into movement and movement into energy, creating a perpetually permeating ambient electromagnetic energy field which sustains the power systems of the craft. While stationary, the craft vibrates at resonant frequency, and when it begins to move, it vibrates at different tones which in turn create halos of interwoven rainbows around the craft. One of our crystal ships were witnessed by John of Patmos, and he called it Jerusalem, Jerusalem, peace to Heru, the crystal city that will descend from heaven in his book of Revelations.
Our smaller crafts use both antimatter reactor fuel, and run on an element we call omnicron, a form of energy you Earthlings do not have as of yet. It is 115 on your Earth element chart. 115 is a theoretical atomic number on the periodic table. Element 115 is a super heavy substance that powers the reactor in our crafts. It has the energy of 1 million atomic bombs, which makes intergalactic travel possible. Unpentium is the temporary name of element 115 on your Earth periodic table of elements that has the temporary symbol UUP. It was first said to have been observed on your planet in 2003, and on August 27, 2013, Earth research scientists reported confirming the existence of the element. Only about 50 atoms of unpentium have been synthesized on your planet to date.
Our advanced Rizq ships come equipped with inertia cancellers to make sharp turns in seconds and to go from rest to supersonic, and from supersonic to superluminal, and back to rest, instantaneously. The anti-gravity propulsion system of our advanced ascension technologies makes it possible for our crafts to teletransport at superluminal velocities capable of bending space and creating wormholes. Our military crafts include plasma force field generators, ultraviolet laser and phaser weapons, antimatter torpedoes, and stealth invisibility shield cloaking mechanisms. In addition to crystal, we also incorporate natural materials into the technologies of our crafts, including ruby, emerald, diamond, sapphire, corundum, beryl, jasper, chalcedony, onyx, sardius, chrysolite, topaz, chrysoprasus, jacinth, and amethyst.
We thank you for touring Rizq Tech, and we look forward to providing you with technology for the next 76 trillion years.
Also, keep in mind that different beings, once they bought ships from us, reverse engineered some of our crafts. So some beings have came up with their own crafts. But for the most part, most of the technology is origin from Rizq Tech. Most of the aerodynamic and saucer type crafts are designed to fly in certain types of atmospheres similar to Earth. This technology that we present to you is about 400,000 years ahead of Earth in technology. Now your government, like we say, have confiscated some of these crafts and have taken them to their secret facilities like S4. They have a secret facility in Utah and in Nevada, right? And they have secret bases and secret underground facilities on offshore islands. Keep in mind, they have developed technology to be able to spot these crafts, infrared, radar, and also advanced drones equipped with direct energy weapons. Now there are ships like Nubaru who pull up into your solar system and draw energy from your sun, right? You see that? It's what we call solar energy crafts. The piezoelectricity also can work off of this type of energy, the solar energy, right? Crystal City, which is stationed over Earth right now. Keep in mind, the Rizqians have combined their technology and upgraded it as time went on. And keep in mind, the Natharus or the Najarus work at Rizq. So keep in mind the connection of the Intergalactical Federation of Planets, right? There's many different types of ships, thousands of different types. We'll be here all night trying to break them all down to you. Hey Zeke, how long we got? He said we got about 4 minutes. As time unfolds, we will be bringing more to you about these crafts and about the beings that's driving them. Like, keep in mind, we at Rizq have sold our ships to many different types of beings. And then those beings in turn have reverse engineered those ships and sold them to other beings. We are not the only company that's out selling ships right now in the universe. Keep that in mind. We're like one of the best, or the best. Well, hell, we are the best, right? We are like Bentley, the highest, Rolls Royce. We like one of them joints, right? And then you got Toyota making their ships. You got all these other companies in the universe making their ships. As it is above, so is it below. We just want to make that clear. But if you don't want to get gypped and you want to get your bang for your buck, come to Rizq. We the best there is. We're the best there is in the business. Now keep in mind, as 2024 unveils, more UFO crafts will be unveiled to you. More beings that are flying these crafts will begin to appear. Because the time is speeding up and the treaty is almost over with. We are about 6 minutes out from 2030 to the pickup point to 2043 when the vortex open and Nubaru will leave out of your solar system. Now, I hear some of you Natharus or you Najarus saying you're not down with us. Well, that's cool, right? But keep in mind, the Natharus or the Najarus are on the mothership Nubaru, and they can be classified as Anunnakis. I want you to think over that before you make your decision on who's who. It's like we told you, there's no number but one. And listen up, Navy intelligence. Listen up, Pentagon. Listen up, Majestic 12 and Mossad and all of you good old secret orders who think you have figured the technology out or tried to reverse engineer some of our shit. You've yet to begin to figure out this. You can't even fathom this type of technology. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad already pointed out to you, you only have one book of mathematics. There's 999 more books of mathematics that you've yet to uncover. The heavens is not left without protection. As the Quran says, we made it a guided canopy. Don't feel free to exercise your wickedness everywhere. We did not make civilizations on these other planets wicked like you. Don't try and visit them. They don't know anything about your way of life. You gonna try to run and hide under the mountains.
But our bunker busters, our thermonuclear drill bombs will tie 'em right down to you.